All right, thank you everyone for being here. Let's hear a big round of applause for you Westsiders over here. And if you didn't know, this event is sponsored by the Westside Coalition, alongside the League of Women Voters, who just always show up, are always there for us, so, and are always there for you. So let's give them a big round of applause. A big thank you for coming and watching this forum. Our goal this evening is to provide a platform where you can gain valuable insights into the candidates running for Utah Senate 10, for Salt Lake County Mayor, also Utah State House 21, Salt Lake County Mayor, County Council at Large C, I don't know how you put that on a lawn sign, and then Salt Lake City School Board 2. We want to help you make informed decisions by showcasing their positions, priorities, and pickles. I just wanted to see if you were listening. It's actually plans. It's 3 P's: positions, priorities, and plans. Throughout the forum, you'll hear directly from the candidates as they respond to questions, discuss their visions, and share their proposals. This is your opportunity to engage with the candidates and get a clearer understanding of how they plan to address the challenges and opportunities facing the Westside community and the community at large. We encourage you to listen actively, take notes, and consider how each candidate's views and plans align with your own values and priorities. Your participation in this forum is crucial to ensuring a transparent and democratic process. Now, it is with great pleasure that I get to do something I haven't done in a long time, and it's throw it to my old colleague, or my former colleague. Neither of us are old, you can tell from looking at us. I'm pleased to introduce our moderator. For nearly 40 years, Laura Jones has been helping people tell their stories. Her resume includes stints of teenage disc jockey, let's hear it for the DJs. A business reporter, a public radio host, and the first civilian public relations director for the Salt Lake City Police Department under Chief Christopher Burbank. She also was part of a small group of communication professionals invited to draft language for the Utah Compact. That's a document of universal values on which to base immigration reform and discussions. Currently, Laura is executive producer and host of the award-winning Radioactive, heard weeknights at 6 on KRCL 90.9 FM, a community affairs radio show that highlights the grassroots activists and community builders. Weeknights at 6 on KRCL 90.9 FM is with great pleasure that I actually get to throw it to Laura Jones.
Thank you, Billy. All right, folks. Everybody registered to vote? Everybody got a plan to vote? All right, ballots start going out October 15th. I'm so pleased to be here and moderate this discussion, this conversation tonight. Billy gave you a couple of rules, so I'm just going to go over a couple of things, right? We've really carefully selected the questions to ensure a fair and unbiased discussion, giving each candidate the opportunity to present their views on key issues. It'll help everyone understand their positions, make that informed decision. We've got the League of Women Voters in the house, our timekeepers. A few of the guidelines for discussion: keep the campaign materials out of here. Please be respectful. Turn off your electronic devices or put them on mute, please. And then after, of course, please stay and mingle with the candidates back there. Let's try to keep crosstalk down to a minute though, because you can tell it's very boomy in here. And you can be at the back of the room and I can hear you up here. So, candidates, in each question, you will be provided up to 2 minutes to respond. After the questions, the candidates will each be provided 2 minutes for a closing statement. Timekeepers from the league are the ones you want to watch. They're going to hold up signs to notify you of your time. And we're starting with Utah State Senate District 10, and Senator Luz Escamilla, the incumbent, and Kyle Erb, the challenger. Did I say that last name right, Kyle?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. So you've got 2 minutes. Please introduce yourself and why you're running for office. Why do you want the job? Senator Escamilla, let's try that. Is it working?
Maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Escamilla, and I'm the current state senator for Senate
Is it
District.
going out? All right, here we go. I don't know that this is very long, so here we go.
That's better. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Luz Escamilla. I'm the current state senator representing Senate District 10, which is the northwest quadrant of Salt Lake City, about 60% of West Valley, and about half of Magna. Since redistricting, we've had a large portion of Magna added to the district, which is exciting. I've been your state senator for the last 16 years. Got elected in 2008, and I've been mostly focusing on families. I believe the state legislature is making critical decisions related to the quality of life of families, and without good quality of life, then we don't have the prosperity and the economic growth that we need. So most of my work, more than 100 bills that I pass as a member of the Minority Caucus, I've been focusing on families, mostly children. I have a big passion for kiddos and making sure that the social determinants of health are being addressed adequately. So what you're going to see with my work as a minority leader, I am the lead person that is working with the majority in making sure that we get the budget that we need of the $29.4 billion that we have to balance every year. And I do believe that having representation that is really reflective of the diversity of our districts and our state is important as we continue to have conversations related to women's issues, children's issues, and families. And with that, I will be asking for your support again so I can get reelected and keep on working for you and your family. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Herb, as Laura said. Got it. Thanks, Joe. So I am running because ultimately the last, I guess you could say 5 years. Before that, I was already involved at a community level, helping in my neighborhood, hosting blood cross drives, that sort of thing. A lot of my neighbors had a habit of coming to me because I've lived in the area of West Valley City for about the past 34 years. And so I have some pretty good connections with the city council in West Valley City. So I've been able to stop some things that some of my neighbors disagreed with, which I enjoy helping my neighbors out and bringing concerns of theirs to the city council. And the last few years, I've been super concerned about government overreach. It is something that has negatively impacted so many people that I know. Both of my kids almost failed out of high school because of the repercussions of just not going to school for a few years. And I think it negatively impacted a lot of students, especially those that are very social and needed that social interaction to be healthy mentally. I also have a lot of concern about public-private partnerships. Public-private partnerships are really a tool that, unfortunately, government doesn't have its own money. It only has money that it takes from its taxpayers and reallocates it to those who it wants to. And so I'd like to stop that, or at least minimize it. I really don't think public-private partnerships are a good idea in general. And so I may find myself sometimes voting against my own party. I hope you're all okay with that. I really would like to stop government overreach.
All right, so let's see this one.
Looks like we're down to 1 minute, folks. So,
Can I get the league timekeepers to move over to this side so you're right in front of the candidates and they will be able to see you. So second question, and we'll go to you, Kyle, for this. We'll just bounce back and forth. Westside residents face significant air quality challenges, including toxic dust from the Great Salt Lake and pollution from nearby freeways and oil refineries. As a candidate for the Ledge, what specific policies or initiatives do you propose to improve air quality for these communities and address the unique environmental health risks they face? 2 minutes each.
This is an interesting one because, so I participated in a town hall, maybe it was a year or two ago, and it was based on research that, I can't remember which legislators actually had the research done, but we learned that about 60% of the pollution that settles in Salt Lake Valley comes from California, oddly enough. I don't know what to do about that. But they also found that a lot of the air pollution comes from train switchers, which is something that they have been trying to do something about. It is something that is a serious concern. It was interesting to see how clean the air got during the lockdown, one of the very few positive outcomes of that. They saw respiratory illnesses and respiratory emergencies drop dramatically. I happened to be in the healthcare industry at the time, and so it was really interesting to see just how much air quality can impact our healthcare system. So it's a serious issue, and we do need to do something about that. I think that the free market can be incentivized in a big way to do something about that. I think that forcing people to make change is not generally the best way to get cooperation, but giving gentle incentives are certainly one way to help. Regulation is necessary, especially when it's doing harm, which we've seen a lot, unfortunately, with air pollution. Salt Lake County really has to pay close attention to their air quality because, well, we live in a soup bowl. So we really do need to have stricter regulations in this area with regards to factories and that sort of thing that can negatively impact everybody who lives here.
Thank you. So actually, air quality has been one of my priorities, legislative priorities for the last 16 years. Obviously, the inland port it's been a big problem, and we collectively, the other House members that are here, Representative Romero, Representative Hollins, we were leading against this effort of putting the inland port in the most polluted area of our entire region, and sometimes of the entire country. So what we've done, I passed legislation and funding to make sure that we're collecting data, so we have a standard and we recognize how much we actually have as a baseline when it comes to the inland port area, which includes the airport. And of course, the airport is growing, and it's great. That means a lot of productivity for the state, but it's also polluting. So what we've done, I run multiple bills, including the diesel emissions incentive program. I think we both agree that we want to incentivize a good behavior. We can bring a stick and carrot approach. Focusing on carrot approach is what people like. So I'm working with members of the majority, and we've been working on a couple of bills related to incentivizing businesses to make sure that we're moving in the right direction and reducing emissions like they did in Texas. So what I did is a strategic plan that was funded through a legislation I passed. We now have the program in place, and we're going to move forward just funding towards better incentives for businesses. Just keep in mind, vehicles are reducing their emission impact, but we're seeing is more emissions now in buildings. So in the next 10 years, our biggest emission emitters are going to be our buildings, and that's going to be also very costly to move. So the way we've done with vehicles in Tier 3 gas, obviously the electric vehicles, that I think both of us own electric vehicles, are critical, but we need to make sure that we're moving those big polluters. And of course, the Great Salt Lake is another one, because those fumes of the Great Salt Lake, as we reduce the level of the Great Salt Lake, also impacts the air quality that we're breathing. Thank you.
All right, everybody. I forgot to say, let's wait till the end of the round, and we'll all applaud then, so we can keep moving on. So here is the second question. I'll stick with you, Liz. Amendment D, proposed by the state legislature, will appear on Utah voters' ballots. So the court ruled the measure invalid, and votes cast in the measure will not be tallied. The state legislature appealed the ruling to the state Supreme Court. The amendment was designed to expressly provide in the state constitution the state legislature has the power to amend and repeal citizen initiatives. So regardless of what's going on with the courts, as a candidate for the Utah State Legislature, what's your stance on Amendment D?
Thank you. Vote no on Amendment D, of course. And I'll say it's very important. Representative Romero is minority leader in the House, and myself as a minority leader in the Senate, we wrote the opposition against Amendment D and the rebuttal against Amendment D. We spoke very loud against it. It's an overreach of the power of the legislative branch, and it's also a violation of our Constitution. It is protecting the Constitution that the people of Utah, as citizens, can also make changes and bring new laws into the state of Utah. So we're very proactively telling everyone to vote no. Right now, of course, there's a Supreme Court decision saying that it will not be counted, but we're still asking everyone to mark no, just in case there's any changes, so we can protect our ability to bring changes of the government that we want and that we need. And there's really no need for that. We could make any changes related to foreign funding that could be done through statutory changes without having to touch the Constitution. That constitutional amendment is not needed, and we will continue to vote against that type of measures and make sure that everyone knows how harming it will be to have the legislature now having that repeal and replace complete control and basically eliminating the ability of the people to make changes of the government that they want. Thank you.
I think we actually agree with quite a bit here. So, with regards to Amendment D, I think it's unfortunate that everything was done in such a rushed fashion. So one of the problems that really this caused is that they did not meet the constitutional requirements to do an amendment. So that's the reason why it's not going to be counted on the ballot, even though it's printed on the ballot, right? So I don't think that's going to end up being valid this go-round. But I also think that because it was so rushed, they failed to deal in, they crammed too many things together. They tried to fix too many problems all at once, which often, unfortunately, is a little bit of a trap that any legislature falls into. I do think it's a good idea to prevent outside influence into our initiatives. I also think that we need to be very cautious about the initiatives that are passed. Unfortunately, not everybody really pays attention to initiatives like this group probably does. And so there is a huge potential for an initiative to happen that could be really problematic for the state. Maybe the budget for the initiative is not workable or something like that. So I do think that there is and should be, there always has been thus far, the ability for the legislature to make fine-tuning changes to an initiative in order to make it workable. They have a constitutional duty to retain and keep a balanced budget, and if an initiative makes it so they can't do that, they must be able to make some changes, but it should be extremely limited and done carefully and not the way that this one was rushed.
All right, we're gonna try these mics right here. Will you grab that one, Bud?
Absolutely.
And then flip it up and see if it's on. All right,
How about now?
here we go, yeah. Okay, so we're hoping, I'm gonna stand by with the one good mic here. Last question and then a 1 minute close for each of our candidates. Affordable housing remains a critical issue in Utah, with many families struggling to find safe and affordable options. As a candidate for the Utah State Legislature, what specific policies or initiatives do you support to increase the availability of affordable housing in our communities?
It's a little bit tight back here. Is it working?
It's not working on the side. Use this one.
Okay.
Good enough. Okay, so I happen to work in the property management industry. I consult with property managers all over the country. So this happens to be a field that I understand quite well. And it's interesting that one of the biggest competitions, one of the biggest, I guess, competitors for rent is actually mortgages, right? So people have to always make a choice between purchasing or renting a property. And with the interest rates going up as quickly as they have, it has priced a lot of people out of the market. And so what has happened is more people have had to resort to renting. One of the things that I recently learned is that investors are able to pay 65% of their property taxes here in Salt Lake County rather than 100% because it's somebody's primary residence. I do think that that's one thing that we need to fix that would incentivize, in some cases, investors to put their homes on the market rather than keeping them long-term. There are a lot of very large companies that own somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 homes, specifically in West Valley City. If those homes were on the market, it would make a big impact on our home prices and make them more affordable. So I think we need to carefully look at our policies and the way that we're approaching taxation around housing and really consider incentivizing selling homes rather than keeping them long-term for investors, especially very large ones.
When it comes to housing, the legislature has been working proactively trying to find solutions. One of the keys is working with municipalities on adopting and implementing moderate income housing plans. That needs to be happening across the state, and we are proactively now with our housing commission, working with the different levels of local municipalities, whether it's the city and the counties, and I know we have here the mayor for Salt County, which is the largest county here in the state. The other piece that needs to continue to happen is coordinating those efforts. It's critical for the state of Utah to continue, it's going to continue to grow, and those policy priorities need to address the deficit that we have. So we actually do have a supply inventory deficit that needs to be addressed. We are going to see some reduction on cost. We also see the increase in cost of construction, made it very problematic. I think we're going to stall a little bit, and we're going to see some decrease on that cost, and that's going to be helping. But without the cities being more flexible on density, and then municipalities, we need to be addressing density. We're not going to have those large half-an-acre homes in many parts as we continue to grow in our population, and that needs to be a reality. At the same time, we want to make sure we're promoting units where families can grow, and obviously an apartment may not be suitable for a family of 4 or 6 people. So that mix of housing that we need, that is moderate income housing plans, is where the legislature can continue to incentivize municipalities through funding and working with those cities and counties. I do also want to say we've done legislatively a lot of work in making sure that we're providing first-time home buyers programs and incentivizing the $10,000 to $20,000 help for them to buy, and that's many of our children. I have some of my kids here that are adults now and can't afford to get into housing, so we need to continue that work. Thank you.
I did. Okay.
So it's time for closing statements of 1 minute apiece, and I apologize for not doing this earlier. So I have Luz and Kyla right here. We're gonna pick who's gonna go last, right? Because everyone wants to go last. Come pick this for me. There we go.
Oh, I can't get it. Okay, whoops, I got
you picked
two.
both. You can only have one. The league. One. All right, Luz gets to go last. Kyle, 1 minute.
Just closing statements?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the issues that wasn't brought up in our questions, I think I'd like to address briefly, I think there are 2 issues that are very much connected. One is homelessness, and the other one is our healthcare system. A few years back, I worked with healthcare providers within health systems and hospitals all over the United States, and it was actually a very common theme for these healthcare providers to come to me and just say, hey, I've got a few $1 million handout from the government, we're going to build this thing, and so we're going to implement your system. And that always made me cringe because I knew that they were building infrastructure that they didn't plan to pay for it long term. It costs them a lot to build, and it ends up increasing the cost of healthcare. The other thing that needs to be fixed with healthcare is how we treat people. That is a huge problem and has caused a lot of the homelessness, and that absolutely should be addressed from the healthcare side of things.
Thank you, everyone, and I just want to, as a closing remarks, to say thank you for all your support over these years. I'm all about delivering outcomes. I hope you get to visit and read more about the more than 100 bills I passed that are directly impact our families and children. Being in the state legislature is not just doing what you want when you think it's right. It's about navigating a very complicated group of 104 members of the legislature and a signature of the governor. And I think experience does matter, and I've been working really hard to make sure that there's a representation that needs to be there with the voices that are usually not at the table to continue to bring their concerns and their issues to the table. Social determinants of health are critical, and they really are impacting especially our Westside residents, and we need to do more so those voices continue to be represented. And I would want to respectfully ask for your support and to continue voting for Escamilla for
take 2 minutes to introduce yourself and go.
Hello, I'm David Atkin, and I ran 2 years ago also and lost that race, so I'm running again, trying to, my pet peeve is how much Utah uses the federal government to get done what they get done. I think we need to do this stuff ourselves. We need to take back our land from the federal government because they shouldn't own any of our land. And we need to work on the smog problem in Utah and see what we can do about getting it down and keeping it down without getting people down and keeping them down. So we don't need to raise taxes to lower smog. We need to figure out ways around stuff that'll work for the people and for the state government.
Good evening. I am Utah State Representative Sandra Hollins. I've been currently serving you since 2015. My background, a little bit about who I am. I'm actually, when I first ran for office, I was working with the homeless population. I'm still an LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker. I currently work in the banking industry, but still kind of social working because I work and do community engagement, making sure monitor lower income communities still have access to banking and that they're still supported. I ran for office because I am a social worker. And I ran for office because a lot of what I bring to the table is what I have learned from the clients that I've had to deal with, or I've had the pleasure of working with, rather. Most of my career was spent actually in Pioneer Park and on 4th West, working with clients, getting them into housing. I worked as a case manager, mental health provider, therapist, and director of homeless outreach. And so I've had a lot of that experience, and what I felt what I was able to bring to the table is not something I read in a book, but what I actually experienced speaking with these individuals. I love the community. My husband and I have been a resident for over 30 years, raised both of our girls here, and we love the neighborhood and love the community.
Let's hold our applause till the round is over, folks. So we're going to go to the first question. David. Westside residents face significant air quality challenges, including toxic dust from the Great Salt Lake and pollution from nearby freeways and refineries, oil refineries. As a candidate for the Utah State Legislature, what specific policies or initiatives do you propose to improve air quality for these communities and address the unique environmental health risks they face?
Well, first of all, the toxic dust can be minimized by making sure the lake retains water. And there are a lot of ways to make sure the lake retains water without detaining the people. There's a lot of tributaries that run from the mountains down in that we could reroute. We could fill up the lake every year from coming down from the mountains. We get enough water up there to do the process. And we just need to work together and think of a good way to redirect the tributaries and make that happen. And then for the oil refineries, I would work with the oil refineries rather than beating them down. I would work with them and figure out a way that's monetarily sound for them and good for the people. Because we don't need to be killing business to make people stay alive. It's been done. It was done with the copper mine, and it almost put it out of business. And I just think people can work together with business without having to destroy it. And we need to try our hardest to get it done.
Thank you. I think earlier when Senator Escamilla was here, she said a mouthful about how we go about with air pollution. I get it, I understand it. I raised both of my daughters here, and I was up a million nights with her with asthma. I had a neighbor that died a couple of years ago because of lung cancer, living on the west side, and she has never smoked a day in her life. And I know that life expectancy is shorter here on the west side as a result of it. part of what I see, with what Lou said also, is around with the freeway. There are some parts of the freeway on the west side that don't have walls up. We have a school that's near a wall, and that ignition is going onto the playground and onto the school. So part of what I would like to do, and I know we've had this conversation before, is about putting up retainer walls, and not only for pollution, but also look at, we don't talk about noise pollution on the west side and the noise that it creates. And so that's what I would like to see done, and what I would like to start pushing for. I've had some constituents who have reached out to me and have asked me about that, and wondering why is it that when you drive down I-15, there's walls everywhere, but there's none on the west side. It's part of what I want to start working on, and part of what's on my agenda to start working on is to try to get that to prevent some of the pollutions from going into the neighborhoods.
All right, David, 2 minutes to you on Amendment D proposed by the state ledge. It's going to be on the ballot. Though the court ruled the measure invalid and votes cast on the measure not tallied, they've appealed the ruling to the state Supreme Court, which has already ruled, nope. That's my summation. The amendment was designed to expressly provide in the state constitution that the state legislature has the power to amend and repeal citizen initiatives. As a candidate for the Utah State Legislature, what is your stance on this issue?
First of all, when it comes to the Constitution, the federal or the state Constitution, we should not stick our hands in it. We've got it there for a purpose, and that purpose is so we and the legislature knows what the laws are that we gotta keep up. And every time somebody puts their hands in it, something goes wrong. So we gotta make sure that it's kept as close to its original intent as it can be. Because these problems are stupid. They don't need to happen. And I agree that this should not be done. Thank you.
Thank you. I voted against it on the House floor. It is very, very concerning to me whenever our state government steps in and tries to take the rights of the people away. This was the people's way of saying, this is what we want. And I am very concerned whenever we try to do that, and that's exactly what this was. This was their way of saying, we don't agree with you, so we're now going to step in and do what we think is best for the people, although this is not what you want. I voted against it. I plan on voting against it on the ballot, and I hope you join me in voting against it, as Lou said. Even though it was thrown out, I don't know, I don't trust what they're going to do with the data, so I'm going to encourage you to also vote no.
All right, last question. Affordable housing remains a critical issue in Utah. Many families struggle to find safe and affordable options. So as a candidate for the state legislature, what specific policies or initiatives do you support to increase the availability of affordable housing in our communities?
The reason housing is such high cost right now is because our economy works as a tax and spend economy. And these houses, there's not enough of them. There's not enough of them to go around right now, so the price goes up because there's not enough of them to go around. And so we need to find a way without putting a bunch of the state's money into it, to get more housing built in the areas it needs to be built in, and get more people into it. But it starts out with inventory first. There is no inventory, and that's why the prices are so high. You got no inventory, and then you've got the interest rates that they keep jacking up on us. And when they want to make us feel good, they let them down a little bit. But it's a simple process. We just need to get together and figure out what the best way is to do it. And nothing hard about it.
So my husband and I, my family, we moved to this area because of the first-time home buyers program. And so that's how we were able to get our home and have been here for 33 years. So I know first-time home buyers programs work. As we're looking at affordable housing, I think we need to have a conversation about preserving affordable housing and what is already out there. There are some tax incentives that's going to be ending, and we need to look at how do we keep those in place, and so that we are able to keep affordable housing. But as we're talking about affordable housing, let's not just look at for families, which I think is very important, but we have to have all types of housing. We have to realize that there are some people in our community who would never have the ability to live on their own. And so we need to look at case management housing. We need to look at our senior citizens who are being priced out of their homes because their income is not going up, but their rent is going up. And so we need to incentivize developers to build affordable housing, but also as the state, we need to look at how we're going to continue to provide grants and incentives to those individuals who are interested in building affordable housing.
All right, time for 1 minute closing. David Atkin.
To close, I really don't know what to say except thank you for allowing me to be here and allowing me to have a chat with you. Thanks for having Utah here. Utah's the best place I've ever lived. I've been back for 32 years. I always left trying to find a new place to go that was better than here. There isn't a place better than here. The people here are good people. I haven't run into any people around here like you do in other cities that are just idiots, Most Utahns are fairly good people. And just because I'm running against this woman doesn't mean I hate her, So it's all about Utah. It's that simple. We got to get together and think of Utah, not overspend and not put our money in the wrong places, which happens a lot. But thank you, guys. Thank you.
Sandra Hollins.
Thank you. I first want to say I agree with my opponent that Utah is the best place to live and the West Side is the best place to live. I would not live any other place but the West Side, even if I was given opportunity. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve you for the last 9 years. I'm hoping I served you proudly. I would be lying if I said that I always get it right. But I try to. But thank you all, those who contact me sometimes and say, Rep, you got it wrong. We don't agree with you on this. I appreciate it because I don't know everything and I depend on you to call me and to inform me about what is happening in the community and what is needed in the community. So I just want to say thank you. I look forward to serving you again. I enjoy what I do, and let's continue to have conversation on how together we can grow as a community.
All right, there's your candidates for Utah State House District 21, Sandra Hollins, David Atkin. Thank you so much.
I almost didn't take it.
Candidates, please introduce yourself and why you're running for office. You have 2 minutes to do that. Erin?
Thank you all for being here. My name is Erin and I'm running for Salt Lake County Mayor. I'm an attorney. I grew up here in Salt Lake County and spent most of my life here. My campaign is really about quality of life, about preserving and maintaining the quality of life that we have come to love here in Salt Lake County. Tomorrow, the Salt Lake City Council is going to vote on a tax increase for the downtown revitalization project. It's going to cost Salt Lake City residents over $200 a year individually. On top of that, my opponent has put a $500 million bond on the ballot this fall and is hoping you don't notice the price tag. At some point, we have to say enough to these tax and spend policies that have gotten us nowhere. My opponent has been in county government for nearly 20 years at this point. You know what's happened in the last 20 years? Housing prices have gone through the roof. Our homeless population has doubled. Taxes that feed the county's $2 billion budget have gotten so high that people are now worried about losing their homes just because of their property tax bill. That's a huge issue. We have 10 years before the Olympics come and return to Salt Lake County. It's time to say goodbye to mediocre leadership and bad policy. to look forward to what Salt Lake County needs to be going forward. It's time to look for common sense, practical solutions that are going to help us actually address the issues on the table. I know a lot of you are probably on the fence here tonight. My goal is that you walk away from this thinking about what's discussed tonight, thinking about the issues that are here, and that by the time your ballots hit your mailbox, you're ready to say, yes, I'm voting for Erin Ryder for Salt Lake County Mayor.
Jenny Wilson.
Well, thank you. It's fabulous to be with you tonight. I see a lot of friends here and some people that I hope to have a chance to speak with individually. It has been an honor to serve you as your Salt Lake County Mayor since 2019. And I agree with the conversation we just had about how wonderful Utah is and what a privilege it is for us to live here. I've been thrilled to be able to raise 2 boys here and a rescue dog, Puddles, and have really appreciated the engagement of our resident citizens in so many different types of settings and forums. And I want to tell you, I believe that we are at a critical time as we face many challenges before us. We are lucky to have the Olympics ahead of us in 10 years. We're also lucky to have a brand new airport. There's a lot going on here, but our neighborhoods are in need of care and attention. And I have the privilege of working with 23 municipalities, mayors, who serve the largest being Salt Lake City, the smallest couple being the towns of Brighton and Alta. 700 square miles in this area, which represents 1/3 of our state's population. And I know right now it can be rough for people. Prices have gone up, and I'm very sensitive to the fact that it's harder to keep bread on the table. And housing, we've discussed housing, and more to come on that. I'll tell you, one of the things I did recently and was thrilled to do is make our rec centers free, our county rec centers free for kids. And that was meant to give families a helping hand, but also get those kids away from their iPads and everything else and in recreating and forming friendships. It's been a big success. It's just one of many things we've done in Salt Lake County. We are arts, culture, canyon management. We are recreation and parks. So many different things that bring value to your lives. Thank you.
And I apologize to the forum committee. We do have fresh questions. So here we go. First question. Erin's going to get this one first. The Jordan River Trail and its surrounding parks hold great potential as community treasures. However, concerns about drug activity on the trail have raised safety issues for residents. As a candidate for Salt Lake County Mayor, what specific strategies would you implement to enhance safety along the Jordan River Parkway Trail and ensure it remains a valuable resource for our neighborhoods?
Yeah, this is a great question. We have to make sure that we are supporting law enforcement in this county. And one of the things that I want to do going into this is to put in place a 10-year plan for the growth and development of the county. Most politicians look 1, 2, maybe 5 years in the future until the end of their term. But as we talked about, the Olympics are coming in 10 years. It's a very natural deadline. Let's look at a 10-year plan that helps us address a lot of these issues. And the Jordan River Parkway is a huge part of that. So we need to have plans that deal with this. One of the things that's frustrating is that, again, my opponent's been in office for 20 years and is just now coming up with a plan for how to tackle homelessness and some of these issues that exist along the Jordan River Parkway. That cannot happen. We need to make sure that we're supporting our law enforcement officers, that we're upholding the law. And one of the big components of this is the county DA's office. At the county DA, we have a little bit of a rotating door in the jail system and the DA's office right now. People get arrested, they go to jail, 8 hours, 24 hours later, they're back out on the street again. It's really difficult to hold people accountable when there's no actual accountability that's happening. So those are things we can do from a county perspective. A lot of the local law enforcement at this point is municipal, with the separation of the Unified Police Department from the county sheriff's department. A lot of that is at the local level, but we can still support through the DA system, through the jail system, through the way that we enforce the law, and it's something that's not really happening right now that needs to.
Well, years ago, I had the privilege of working across party lines to create the Jordan River Commission. I was the co-chair, one of the 2 co-chairs. Chris McCandless, a Republican, and Sandy, and it took a lot of planning to get that commission created. And what we need is a coordinated, cohesive organization that supports the river. There are issues on the river right now, and I'll tell you, I am in the driver's seat right now with incredible staff at Salt Lake County to address the issues that are happening right now in this area along the river. We've been in touch with Salt Lake City PD, my team at Salt Lake County. One of them is here tonight, Catherine Fife. She's led this for us, along with our lead under the Sheriff's Office, to engage further. We're investing, we're putting out federal grants right now. I'm happy to announce that we just were awarded $500,000 for peer navigators that will help people that are facing crisis through the system. I am strongly supporting the bond proposal that my opponent brought up. It will be an investment for necessary infrastructure. We have for too long not had enough housing. We have seen too much of a churn in our jail. And the centerpiece of this proposal is a Justice and Accountability Center for people committing crimes, but people who are committing a lower level of offense and won't be held in the county jail for long. This JAC, as we're calling it, will create an environment for people to be held accountable, but also to be put on a path to success. I hope that you'll take the time to look at this bond proposal. It's on average $5 a month for the average valuation of a house. So I hope you'll consider it. And again, I enjoy working on these issues across party lines. Together, we can work to get things done.
Let's go a little deeper into issues of housing. So the county estimates that around 1,000 individuals are living unsheltered. So as a candidate for Salt Lake County Mayor, what specific plans do you have to enhance affordable housing options, particularly in the West Side?
All right. All right, so enhancing affordable housing on the West Side is a huge, huge thing. And for a long time, the West Side of Salt Lake County, frankly, has been ignored by the county. We need to deal with this issue. Housing is one of the top 3 issues that I deal with in this campaign on every single day. And what's interesting is over the last 12 months, we did some polling a year ago. This is an issue that has increased in its frequency and discussion talking points amongst people in Salt Lake County. So what I'm gonna do, again, I'm talking about this 10-year plan for growth and development, right? We have a lot of haphazard growth that's going on in Salt Lake County right now. Apartment complexes popping up here and there. Things are kind of happening. I don't want to wake up in 10 years and think, oh, the county does not look like what we wanted it to look like. That means you need really proactive, engaged leadership, bringing these municipalities to the table, because this is a cross-jurisdictional issue. The cities are involved with zoning ordinances. In many ways, the state is involved. And right now, it's the state and the cities, and there's an absence of Salt Lake County in the mix. So we need to restore that level of leadership from a regional perspective. We need to look at ways of bringing homeowners on par with some of these big corporate buyers that are coming in, the corporate Airbnb models that are really sucking up a lot of our housing. We need to look at the pipeline for housing. You know, home ownership, I heard Representative Hollins talk about the fact that there are people who may not ever be able to truly own their own home. We need to account for that. We need a pipeline to ownership. Where are our condos? Where are our townhouses? Where are our smaller single-family homes, our starter homes? Where are our larger homes? All of those things need to be accounted for. And right now, we've got bits and pieces going like this, but nobody's really looking at this from a regional standpoint, bringing all of these components together and saying, West Jordan, what do you need? Sandy, what do you need? Harriman, what do you need? Did you know there's no bus system in the entirety of Harriman? There's no bus system in Riverton. How do you handle all the growth that's happening in those areas without public transportation?
So the great thing about Salt Lake County is we do have the opportunity to work with local officials and the legislature. And this is an area, in order to crack the nut here, is going to take continued collaboration. And Salt Lake County, as a regional government, is indeed working with the legislature on policies that will promote land use in a manner that makes sense towards getting us to resolution around these issues. I'll tell you, one of the issues is out of our hands, and that's our free market. And we've talked about interest rates rising and also growth and access to capital. But we can be in the driver's seat to support policies that are better, that create town centers and that lead to more inventory. And Salt Lake County continues to advocate for those policies. We work with the League of Cities, we work with the Utah Association of Counties, advocate with specific legislators. But ultimately, those policies are in the hands of cities, and we see across the board very, very different policies, and frankly, some cities resisting. We can and we have invested. Salt Lake County put $25 million into housing recently, and we have seen thousands of units come up because of it. We're working to find, to leverage federal grants and to create policies through those federal grants that will bring about more inventory. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I care the most about is deeply affordable. We've touched affordability. I want my kids to be able to own a home when they're ready soon. But I additionally care about the investment in deeply affordable. That's a very different challenge. My plan, as I referenced earlier, is to build 1,000 units over the next 5 years. We're on track to do so. Day in and day out, we're looking at grants and trying to figure out great partnerships, public-private partnerships. I support that ability for people to support, not have all of the burden fall on government alone.
All right, one last question before closing statements. Westside of Salt Lake City faces significant challenges, including more heat islands, poor air quality during inversions, and risks of toxic dust from the Great Salt Lake. So with upcoming growth initiatives like the I-15 expansion and major economic development projects, what strategies do you propose to address these environmental health issues for residents in Salt Lake City's Westside?
Now, this is an issue that I've been thinking a lot about. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the concept of blue zones. I'm fascinated by this concept. It's the idea that there are pockets in the world where you have a larger than normal percentage of centenarians, or people who live to be 100. I think Salt Lake County could be a blue zone. We have a lot of the dynamics here that it would take to create an environment like that, and yet there are things that are getting in our way. Air quality and environmental issues being one of them. We saw the effects of this when COVID hit in that first winter of 2021 when the air was very different than we normally see on an annual basis. And so we know that this does have an impact. We need to continue investing in different forms of alternative energy while recognizing the fact that a lot of those energy sources are not yet at the point where they can actually power the grid at the level that we need. Doesn't mean we don't invest in them, we just need to be smarter about it. Our homes are actually one of the areas where we see a lot of emissions coming out. You have a lot of old homes in the valley where energy bleeds. We can look at rebate programs, we can look at different things like that. Some of those exist, I think we can do better. My home is old, has a lot of single pane windows, and I know that that energy just bleeds out in the winter. So things like that, we need to look for creative, interesting solutions to find ways to deal with this, making sure that we're investing in the Great Salt Lake, working with the state to do this. The state legislature is definitely working on this. We need to make sure we continue to do that. The Jordan River, we've already talked about that, is an important component as that flows to the Great Salt Lake, and making sure that that water quality, the way we're using water, works and is effective here in Salt Lake County. Maybe that means we're incentivizing people with more native plant development and growth and different things like that across the valley. Most of these issues really come down to creative solutions, looking for new ideas to old problems that still have not been addressed. I mean, these are issues we've been talking about for years, and here we are.
Well, thank you for all of you involved in the League of Women Voters and the advocates in the room. We need your voice at the legislature as it relates to air quality. One example is my great colleague, Suzanne Harrison, who had served as a legislator and now is a county council member, was up to be considered to serve on the air quality board, and that board has the ability to regulate. She was denied. We need to get good people on that board, not just industry. Hard stop, we need your help. The county can do a lot, but we can't regulate. So what we are doing is monitoring right now. We have a novel program with the buses that don't pollute, that are electric, that are out monitoring right now, especially important to the west side, because we know for a variety of reasons, the smokestacks, the close nature to the lake, etc., and now expanded development through the port, that people here are getting sicker due to pollution, and we've got to stop that. So the monitoring is critical, and we're getting information back. Additionally, the shrinking Great Salt Lake is an existential crisis, and therefore we need to do more every day to conserve water. That means our agricultural industry outside my county needs to make change. Again, that's a state issue, but at Salt Lake County, we're doing things like flipping strips. We changed out a couple of our soccer fields from grass to astroturf, saving thousands of acres of water, and we continue to invest in energy efficient fleet. We're looking at advocacy through my role with Wasatch Front Regional Council as they look at solutions throughout, along with Department of Transportation. There's a lot more Salt Lake County is doing. I'm out of time, but this is an area I care a lot about because we need our health to be great. We need our kids to grow up here and want to stay here. Thank you.
All right, closing statements, 1 minute each. Erin Ryder.
Well, first I want to just thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's great that you all showed up on a Monday night and took the time to talk to us and listen. I mean, really, the fact that this room is so packed is a testament to your commitment to your community, and that's to be applauded. The thing I want you to walk away from, I said at the beginning of this, that I wanted you to come out of here thinking about what was discussed tonight. What I really want you to think about is the fact that with every single one of these issues, every single one of these questions, we've been talking about this for years. My opponent has been in office for years, and not one of them has gotten better. I think that should tell you everything you need to know about the future of this county. So I'm going to ask you to take a chance on me to vote for me for Salt Lake County Mayor. I don't care who you vote for president. I don't care where you come from. What I care about is making sure that you are represented on a county level, and that you belong here in this county, that you know you belong here in this county, and that we're able to address the issues that you face, that your families face, that your kids face, so that your family can have a beautiful, wonderful life here in Salt Lake County. Thank you so much.
Jenny Wilson.
Well, thank you. I want to point out the Salt Lake County Council position is part-time, and I had the honor of serving for 10 years while I was raising my kids and doing other things in the community. I've then been in office for 6 years, so it's 16, not 20, but I'm sure you can figure that out. In any event, experience matters. Those 10 years, we have an almost $2 billion budget at Salt Lake County. We have over 7,000 employees, in fact, almost 8,000. The vast majority, 75% of them, are under my portfolio. Parks and recreation, arts and culture, planning, economic development, the health department, the list goes on. It's important that you have somebody wise, who's experienced, and who cares. I bring about all those qualities, and luckily I have that energy, and my family's going to let me serve for another 4 years. Thank you.
All right, there's your candidates for Salt Lake County Mayor. First 2 minutes, please introduce yourself to our guests here, our rooms here tonight. First up, Rachelle Morris.
Well, hi everyone. It is great to be here tonight. I know everyone's getting the wiggles out, and thank you for your patience. We'll have a great conversation over the next 15 minutes. My name is Rachelle Morris. I'm a first-time candidate. I come from the private sector. Growing up in a big family, money was tight. We were reduced lunch kids, my brothers and me. And I started selling gum out of my backpack when I was 12 years old. And by the time I was 18, I was financially independent. I got a full ride scholarship to BYU, where I became the first woman on my mom's side of the family to get a college degree. And a bank called Goldman Sachs recruited me out of school. And so I started my career at Goldman Sachs, where I worked during the financial crisis. And let me tell you what, you really cut your teeth managing money through a major recession like that. I then also worked for JP Morgan for 3 years, where JP Morgan recruited me to launch an office here. I managed a team, I managed a big book of business, advising some of the most prominent families in the state of Utah. And then 2 years ago, my partners and I, we launched an early stage venture fund. And so I spend my time in the private sector investing in innovative, gritty, resilient entrepreneurs who are trying to make things happen that don't yet exist in society. They are risk takers, in entrepreneurs. I got a phone call in November informing me that Jim Bradley is retiring from the county council. He's the only human who's ever held this position. He's been a great community-focused steward in this at-large seat. I will bring that same approach to my service on the county council. That's what you deserve, all 1.2 million people who call Salt Lake County home. When you think about what the #1 job of the county council is to oversee the purse strings of an almost $2 billion annual budget. There's 9 people on the council. No one on the council comes from the world of finance and investing. I know that I will bring my skill set that will be of value to all 1.2 million people who call Salt Lake County home.
Natalie Pinkney.
Hello, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. I am Council Member Natalie Pinkney and running to be your next at-large representative on the County Council. I grew up in a multi-generational family raised by my grandmother and my father. My father joined the Air Force and became a military and police. After the Air Force, he spent 20 years as a county correctional officer serving young men in juvenile detention. It was his experience that really understood the power of public and community service. He grew up in a violent household and didn't want to repeat a cycle, but instead wanted to see that there was another opportunity out. And for the majority of my childhood, my mother was incarcerated, and we would be reunited in my childhood. We would take county buses and trains to go to county resource offices to talk to people who didn't see her as a second-class citizen, but someone who wanted an opportunity. And if you talk to my mom, she tells you it's not about where I've been, it's about where I'm going. And she's a property owner, a CNA, and someone who comes knocks doors with her daughter. And when I moved out here almost 10 years ago to attain my master's in educational leadership and policy, I understood the importance of having opportunities. See your neighborhood determines your outcome, your education, and that was determined by politicians. And I believe that it doesn't matter what neighborhood you're from, you should be able to thrive. More and more families are becoming multi-generational. And when I was elected to the South Salt Lake City Council in 2020, I made the decision to help these families. We are still in a crisis and people need help. That's why I'm running on financial empowerment in housing. In 2020, when I was sworn in and the world stood still, I became a crisis leader, and we need crisis leaders that solve complex issues. I've decided to be a community organizer. I've decided to be a champion of neighborhoods, and I hope to have your support for this election. Thank you.
All right, let's get your responses on this issue of the Jordan River Trail. Again, it's surrounding parks. They have great potential as community treasures. However, concerns about drug activity on the trail have raised safety issues for residents. So as a candidate for Salt Lake County Council, what specific strategies would you implement to enhance safety along the Jordan River Parkway Trail and ensure it remains a valuable resource for our neighborhoods? Rachelle Morris.
So I launched my campaign on January 2nd. So we've been campaigning all year. And very early along this ride, a good friend who lives over here on the west side brought me over, and she told me, Rachelle, I don't want your pity. I don't want you to come over with your talking points. I just want your presence over here consistently. And so I served on the Earth Day, my hometown Jordan River Trail Cleanup Day. I've attended several community events here in Rose Park and in the Fair Park communities, including the Lions Club pancake breakfast over the summer. I attended the Westside Salt Lake City Council meeting that was a couple weeks ago, and I heard the dozens and dozens of public comment from Westside residents who were begging the Salt Lake City Council for greater law enforcement. I'm really proud to say that I've earned the endorsement of the Salt Lake Valley Law Enforcement Association. It means a lot to have the backing of the police officers who serve in our county and who believe that I will be a collaborative force for good for law enforcement and accountability inside of our county. There is a public safety bond that is on the ballot. and I am voting in support of this public safety bond. We have not built a single jail bed in 23 years in our county, while our county's population has grown by hundreds of thousands. And the working families of the West Side are the ones who are paying the greatest price and the greatest cost for this lack of investment in our jail system. So I'm supporting the bond, and I will be a very focused, very earnest community member representing the West Side communities on the council.
All right, Natalie.
This is an issue that we work with a lot on South Salt Lake. I actually live near the river, and South Salt Lake, we get funds each year from the state legislature for mitigation. So we have officers who are working directly with our homeless populations in our city and along the river. And what I know about the situation on the Jordan River is that we every year have to fight for those resources. A lot of times, because South Salt Lake or Salt Lake City or Midvale are dealing with these issues, we're kind of on our own. So we really need every city to chip in, and that's what we do every year, going up to the session and making sure that every city really chips in. Our officers need more resources and they need more help, so we can help them with that by making sure that the state does their part to give us money so that we can actually have officers who feel like they've been valued, because it is a really difficult position. South Salt Lake is actually known for how we talk with our unsheltered populations on the river. Our officers really approach it with dignity, making sure that people know where the resources are, packing up all of their personal belongings and getting them help. Because of the programs that we have in South Salt Lake, we can really have a case management approach when it comes to homelessness. And the Justice and Accountability Bond that the mayor talked about earlier is another great opportunity for us to address the root cause of homelessness. We can't only just address it with law enforcement, because that will continue to increase services. Increased services means increased taxes. So when we're thinking about how we're going to address homelessness in the Jordan River, we need to have an approach of the root cause. Also expanding our shelter capacity. Not all shelters are at the capacity, so how can we make sure that we're utilizing that, and also increasing the small site model that we currently have. In South Salt Lake, we have a men's resource center, and we're getting a family resource center. How can we do more to help?
All right, let's dig a little deeper into homelessness issues. The county estimates that around 1,000 individuals are living unsheltered. So as a candidate for Salt Lake County Council, what specific plans do you have to enhance affordable housing options, particularly in the West Side community?
Yeah, housing affordability, that is the #1 issue inside of our county. And I'll never forget the first Friday evening in which I was knocking doors in a Rose Park neighborhood before my Republican primary. And I knocked on the door of a family who has been renting their home for over a decade from a landlord who would love to sell the home to them. But they can't, because if they were to try to get a mortgage and buy the house from him with the appreciation of value of the house, their housing payment would nearly double on a monthly basis. So it's actually cheaper for them to continue renting. That's the type of math that doesn't work for long-term prosperity in Salt Lake County. When I knock on the doors of community members in Fair Park and folks talk to me about living in a multi-generational household, I feel it. I hear you. I think both of the county mayor candidates talked about the fact that the county isn't totally in the business of housing. And the New York Times recently came out with some figures that this whole housing crisis in our country started with the great financial crisis, and there is a national shortage of 2.5 to 3 million homes. The Kinsey Gardner Institute believes that in Utah, that's about 37,000 homes that we have a shortage of in our state. And thinking about how Salt Lake County, we have 1/3 of the state's population, well, that means that we're probably 12,000 houses short in our county. So, as a county council member, my responsibility is to be a collaborative person between state leaders and city leaders to help make sure that we're getting the infrastructure and planning built out so we can get more houses built more quickly.
Housing is a top issue that I'm running on, financial empowerment and housing. And what we know is we need to increase our supply. I live on the west side of the county and west side of South Salt Lake, so I understand the divide on the west and east side, and that's why I got involved in politics, because it shouldn't matter what your neighborhood, you should be able to have a future that you feel proud of and that your children can also be a part of. There are so many families that are struggling right now, multi-generational families, friends that have to move in together, people who have paid off their home but they feel like they're being pushed out. What the county can do is really partner with cities to see how we can increase our supply. Private and public partnerships and working with developers who, we can do leasing agreements or land trust agreements. There are a lot of developers who want to build housing. But when we're talking about the housing, we need to make sure we're building all types of housing, not just for lease, but also for ownership. Ownership is essential to America and the foundation of the American dream. And when we're thinking about how we're going to empower our families, that's going to be through housing. Another area that I really understand in South Salt Lake is the barriers of even getting built. A lot of cities, you go city by city, they each have their own zoning and their own ideas. So how can we as a county work together to make sure that we're helping with those barriers and also making sure that we're addressing the housing supply for everyone? I like to say housing affordability instead of affordable housing. Affordable housing usually is going to target folks with 60% AMI and below, which is not the majority of middle class or upper middle class families. So we need to make sure that we are building for every single component of our county. And the West Side especially needs that support. I've seen over the years the West Side has become kind of a dumping ground for a lot of county and state resources instead of investing in our neighborhoods and building the supply that we need. I've done that in South Salt Lake. We did not put any budget dollars behind it, and now we have a housing manager and we have a comprehensive housing affordability plan, and that was because of advocacy, and we can do the same thing at the county.
All right, last question before closing statements. The west side of Salt Lake City faces significant challenges, including more heat islands, poorer air quality during inversions, and risks of toxic dust from the Great Salt Lake. With upcoming growth initiatives like the I-15 expansion and major economic development projects, what strategies do you propose to address these environmental health issues for residents in the West Side community? Rachelle?
So one thing that is really critical to me as I think about Salt Lake County being a fantastic place to live for many years to come is how vital it is to have a healthy Great Salt Lake. The current level of the Great Salt Lake is about 4,192 feet above sea level, and the ideal conditions would be to have it at least 10 feet higher. And so I've been doing a lot of research and meeting with organizations such as Grow the Flow and Friends of Great Salt Lake. I joined them on the coastal cleanup about a month ago. I care a lot about how do we, as a county government, do everything that we can to encourage the state legislature to enact policies tied to increasing the flow from other counties. We're not a big ag county, but we are the county that's most impacted from a health perspective from the vitality of the Great Salt Lake. Thinking through, xeriscaping properties that the county owns, right? And increasing the flow to the Great Salt Lake with all of our county properties and the cities that make up the county. So that's number one. Number two, I've become quite close with the Pacific Islander community, and many of them live here on the west side. And we've talked through the increased rates of asthma that happen with children and other health risks that are part of the Pacific Islander community out here on the west side. I care a lot about being an advocate for ethnic minority communities as a member of the council. And then number three is thinking through the future of mobility. So in the private sector, I invest in electric vehicle related companies. Utah County has gotten federally funded EV chargers. Salt Lake County has not yet. I hate that we're losing to Utah County when we think about EV charger infrastructure as a county government, and I would definitely be an ambassador for increasing our EV charger network across our county, which will improve the infrastructure over here.
comes to health conditions and overall outcomes. What the county can do is really help to increase public transportation. How can we not just increase the services, but also increase the culture of people using public transportation so we're not using our cars as much? There was a latest report that said that people were actually driving more after COVID than they were before COVID, and that's only going to continue to increase our air pollution. So how do we invest in public transportation? Also, what can the county do to look for grants or incentives to get people to flip to electric vehicles so that we can, have those charging stations and making sure that we have less air pollution? When it comes to the Great Salt Lake, it's really going to have to be a multi-county approach. We can't just do it alone for Salt Lake County. There's been a lot of conversations about where we get the water from. 60% of our drinking water right now is going to agriculture. It's not going to human beings. So what can we do to really rectify that? And that could really help rectify the pollution standards. And then a last thing I want to talk about too when it comes to our air quality. If you are in your car in the morning, everyone's going the same way. The same part of Salt Lake County, all the jobs are in Salt Lake City, they're on the east side. How can we have better planning of where the jobs are, where services are, so that people aren't just congested in one part of the county? They're in their car less, they have more of an opportunity to walk and have connectedness. I've talked to so many people who would like to walk their neighborhoods, who would like to ride bikes, but don't feel like we're building an infrastructure in a county that welcomes that. So with transportation, really looking at the congestion of our city, incentives so that we can really tackle our air quality, and working with the other counties, we can help rectify the inequities that we have in the county. Thank you.
All right, time for closing statements. Rachelle Morris, go first.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing this great event tonight. I just want you to know, I love Salt Lake County. I thought I loved Salt Lake County before I started running for office, but my love for Salt Lake County and the folks who live in every single one of our 23 cities across the county has grown exponentially. It would be an honor and a privilege to be able to serve all 1.2 million people. I genuinely believe that Salt Lake County can be the best metropolitan area in the Western United States over the next 10 years. And quite frankly, I'm focused on getting things done. I've worked hard my entire life. I will work hard for you. I don't care what letter is behind your name. If you want to make Salt Lake County the best metropolitan area in the Western United States, I want to collaborate with you. So my name's Rachelle Morris, and I hope to earn your support, and I'll be here to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Natalie Pinkney.
Thank you again for coming to this forum. In 2020, when I got sworn in to City Council that year, the same year my opponent left Goldman Sachs, I got a job offer from Goldman Sachs. But in order to take that job offer, I would have to turn down City Council. And I decided to turn down Goldman Sachs. And I'm glad I made that decision, because when the world stood still in March of 2020, our neighborhood needed leaders that could problem solve. I worked with my city council to create a financial empowerment center that's operating today, helping with generational support. I created a government board of accountability and transparency so that we could tackle community policing together. I voted no against 110% property tax increase, and I also helped save homes on Winslow Avenue when developers wanted to turn it into a parking lot. And every step of the way, I have been a crisis leader that has invested in our community. That is my record. I've done it on the city council, and I plan to do it on the county council. And I ask for your support so that together we can create a future for everyone. I'm Natalie Pinkney, and again, I would love to have your support for Salt Lake County Council at large.
There you go, your candidates for County Council at large seat, Natalie Pinkney and Rachelle Morris. So, candidates, you have 2 minutes. Please introduce yourself.
Hi there. My name is Turner Bitton. For the last 5 years, I have been the chair of the Glendale Neighborhood Council on the city's southwest side. I decided to run for Salt Lake City School Board because I've looked at what I consider a dysfunctional school board that is prioritizing the wrong strategic investments in the future of public education here in Salt Lake City. I'm running because I believe that we can do so much more and that there is so much opportunity around us. Our city is changing, it's growing, and it's evolving, and every one of those changes can be harnessed to power public education in the future, to fund our education system, to create lifelong opportunities for learning and earning, and most importantly, to strategically reinvest in what public education in Salt Lake City looks like. We have, as voters, you have an opportunity on your ballot this November to fundamentally shape what public education in Salt Lake City looks like. I did not grow up in Salt Lake City. I've spent the last 6 years here in Salt Lake City. I cannot tell you 50 years of history here in Salt Lake City, but what I can tell you is what Salt Lake City means to a queer kid that grew up in a rural part of the state, that looked at Salt Lake City as an opportunity to be safe, to be affirmed, and to be welcomed. And that is what I found on the west side of Salt Lake City, and that's something that I will stand for every single day as your school board member.
Hello, thanks for sticking around. My name is Charlotte Fife-Jepperson, and I'm running for the Salt Lake City School Board Precinct 2 because, first and foremost, I care deeply about our young people and care about their futures and about their quality of life. I believe that education is the biggest indicator for a person's quality of life. In the future, you can break cycles of poverty. But while many of our students are flourishing in our public schools, there are many falling through the cracks and not graduating at the rate that they should. We have a big gap here on the west side compared to other parts of the city. And so that is one of the things that I want to work on and why I'm running. I spent the last 3 years working as a teacher at Glendale Middle School and got to see firsthand things that were working in the schools and a lot of the pitfalls and things that the deficits. So we really need, I saw teachers overworked and underpaid and being asked to do many more things than that they've done in the past. So I want to really support the teachers and make sure that our students are having the best quality of education that they can and that their outcomes are improved. And as a longtime resident, teacher, mother of 3 who went through the schools, I have a unique perspective of the Salt Lake City School District. And I hope that I'll have a chance to work for our students.
Okay, school board questions. Salt Lake City School District is seeking voter approval for a $730 million bond to replace West High School structural rebuild of Highland High School and athletic facilities at East High School. So West High has been in use since 1921. As a candidate for the Salt Lake City School Board, what is your plan for West High School to ensure that it effectively serves the needs of the community if the bond measure does not pass? Turner.
Well, first and foremost, I want to let everyone know here that I plan to vote against the bond. I think that it is not the right time to be seeking $750 million to rebuild high schools and to invest in infrastructure for the future. I do not question the need to invest in our public high schools, but I question the process whereby such a large bond ended up on the ballot 2.5 months before the election. I also question the amount of information that voters have been given about the bond. It really fundamentally bothers me that we put such a large price ticket on the ballot and then we put it on voters to go find out the information on what that bond is going to be spent on. We do open houses and we expect voters to come into us, but we're not out doing the kind of work that we should expect from our elected officials. To get specific to West High School, I think one of the most important things to understand about West High School is it's the gateway to the city. For decades, people have driven past West High School as a symbol of public education in Salt Lake City. And I think the most important thing that we can do for all of our high schools, for our junior highs and for our elementary schools, is to have a coherent strategy at all levels of Salt Lake City School District about what the bond means. One of the things that I find particularly concerning about the bond is we are comfortable putting the bond on the ballot, but we haven't looked at a levy to address some of our fundamental issues with retaining staff, with fully staffing all of our elementary schools and our high schools. I was in a meeting the other day. There's a task force looking at parking at Glendale Middle School and Mountain View Elementary School. And when we talked to the principal about staffing during pickup and drop-off times, he talked about how many of his staff can't stay because they're limited to 29 and a half hours. And if we have them do pickup and drop-off and help make it more orderly, we can't staff other important roles in schools. So for me, in my mind, I'm done.
Could you please repeat the question? Happy to. All right. The Salt Lake City School District is seeking voter approval for a $730 million bond to replace the West High School structural rebuild of Highland High School and the athletic facilities at East High. West High has been in use since 1921. As a candidate for the Salt Lake City School Board, what is your plan for West High School to ensure it effectively serves the needs of the community if the bond measure does not pass?
All right, so if the $730 million bond does not pass, that would be a shame, I think, because our schools are really in need of major repair, and West High School is the oldest school in the state, and it doesn't have the infrastructure it needs for 21st century, high-tech learning. But if it does not pass, then I think we would need to work within the budget that we have to do necessary repairs. It would really set the school district's plans back to address their sustainability goals. They wanted to try to become net zero by 2035, I think. And so that would be a big setback. But West High would still be the great school that it is, and the magnet school that it is with the IB programs and the ELP programs, and serving our northwest quadrant of the city. But we would have to get creative about finding budgets to do the necessary repair. So.
All right, question 2. Given the challenges of declining enrollment and budget constraints, the district is considering the closure or consolidation of schools. As a candidate for the school board, what criteria do you believe should guide decisions about closing or consolidating schools in the district? Turner?
I think one thing that folks in this room need to understand is whoever wins this race in November, it is highly likely that we're going to go through another school closure process by the end of our first term. Looking at demographics, looking at some of the data that the district has chosen to use for making its school closure decisions, to me indicates that we're likely going to have to go through this process again. That being said, I believe that one of the most important issues in this election is that the school board and Salt Lake City are aligning their strategic goals. Oftentimes it feels as though the city and the school district are operating in two different universes and making decisions in two very different ways. I look at the closure of Mary W. Jackson, which was just closed through the most recent school closure process. In the next 5 years, there are thousands of units that are going to come online. When I say units, I mean houses that are going to come online on the North Temple corridor. Whether they're 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or a studio is relatively irrelevant to me, because the reality is we don't have enough housing, and so families are forced to rent wherever they can. Even in one-bedroom apartments, even in studio apartments. And with all of that growth and with all of that development will come additional children. The criteria that I believe is most important for looking at when you're looking at schools is, one, we want to make sure that they're all aligned with the changes in demographics and where growth is happening within our city. When I look at the criteria that was just used to close elementary schools, in my mind, we didn't look far enough east. We only looked at downtown, and we only looked at the west side for school closures. And the reason that that is relevant is that the folks with the most transportation needs, with the biggest barriers to accessing education and healthcare and a variety of different resources live here on the west side. And yet the decisions that we're making don't reflect those needs.
In considering which schools need to be closed, I think the criteria should be based on equitable distribution of schools throughout the city. I was a student at South High School, and my school was closed in 1988, and they made the wrong choice. They closed South High, and now all of our students are bused all the way across the city to East or Highland. And it wasn't based on good data. They did it for financial reasons, but they said that they made our school out to be scary and bad test scores, but it was all just, anyway, it was very inequitable and unfair and a poor process. So we need to have schools that are equitably distributed so that we have a sense of community. We don't have that right now, especially with our high schools. I think the criteria that the school district used for this latest closure was I think it was pretty fair. There were about 15 different things that they looked at. Transportation, safety, routes, but I do think population, the population forecast, whatever, how that's where the development is something to look at as well. I agree with Turner on that.
All right, last question. In 2023, Salt Lake City School Board announced the hiring of a new superintendent without providing the public an opportunity to meet the strongest candidates, unlike with previous superintendent hirings. So as a candidate for school board, how do you see the involvement of the community in future hiring decisions and the role of transparency for key leadership positions? Turner.
Thank you. I look at the hiring process, and quite frankly, the firing processes that we've gone through in recent years as fundamentally flawed because they were not transparent and because the school board doesn't publish a consistent set of criteria that they use for hiring and evaluating our superintendent. The school board hires two positions that report directly to it. One is the superintendent and one is the business manager. And essentially, the school board operates as a nonprofit organization that hires an executive director who then runs the staffing on the day-to-day. I will tell you that one of the most important roles that I think that the school board has is setting publicly accessible criteria for the way that we evaluate our superintendent. One, so that our superintendents know what can of worms they're diving into when they come to Salt Lake City. And two, that the public understands the lens at which their school board member is going to evaluate the performance of that superintendent. So all of this is to say that I believe in a public process for the hiring of our superintendents, and I believe in a public process for the evaluation of our superintendents, not just a process where 7 members decide whether they get along with the superintendent, whether they like the superintendent, or have some obscure personal issue with the superintendent. But it's important that we have Not only one, transparent criteria for hiring, but two, transparent criteria for the evaluation of your superintendent. At the end of the day, it's your tax dollars that pay that person's salary. And the thing that I have heard over and over and over again from our teachers, from our paraprofessionals, from our families, and from people at their doors is that they want stable, consistent leadership at the top that can set a vision for our district and a school board that minds its business and evaluates that person fairly and accurately.
Charlotte.
Okay, could you repeat that question?
Sure.
So in 2023, Salt Lake City School Board announced the hiring of a new superintendent without providing the public an opportunity to meet the strongest candidates, unlike previous superintendent hiring. So as a candidate for school board, how do you see the involvement of the community in future hiring decisions and the role of transparency for key leadership positions?
Yes, I think that was a mistake. They need to have a robust public engagement process like they did with the others. I think that they were in a crisis mode. We've gone through 4 superintendents in the last 5 years, so it was rather, I think they probably wanted to move forward as quickly as they could, but we should not sacrifice community engagement in the process. It's really important for any kind of search committee, to have a very transparent and open process, and to have the community weigh in on what kind of leadership they want, what kind of direction they want their school to go into. One of my main goals, if I were to be elected, is to increase community engagement and have families and parents directly involved in their children's education. So that starts with envisioning what kind of high school they might want to have here on the west side in Glendale. We're going to be doing some focus groups actually coming up very soon, and I'm doing this just as a community member and with my role on the Westside Coalition. But that is a big thing that I would be running on, is to involve parents, families, and not just the parents that are already here, but the 42 or 48% of school-aged families that send their kids elsewhere, outside of the district or to private schools or homeschool. They need to be brought back to the table, and we need to bring them back into our district.
All right, time for final statements. 1 minute each. Turner.
Thank you. As you leave tonight, I hope you remember the transformational amount of power you have on your ballot this November. Public education is under attack from the top of your ballot to the bottom of your ballot. Everything from book bans and attacks on academic freedom, all the way down to the gutting of public financing for our public schools. The other thing that you have the opportunity to do is vote for leaders that are going to have a big vision for Salt Lake City and not a small vision for Salt Lake City. I want Salt Lake City School District to be a district of yes and a district of possibility, not a district of no and limited options. When you vote this November, as you consider the bond, as you consider all of the things that are happening in Salt Lake City, vote for the person that's going to get Salt Lake City School District at the table with all of the change happening around the city. From the NHL to a potential MLB team to the 2034 Olympics, all of these are opportunities for us to create lifelong pathways to learning and earning for every one of our children. I don't have thanks.
All right, well, thank you for being here tonight and for sticking with us. I am a proud product of public education, and the bilingual education that I received at Parkview Elementary School shaped who I am today and gave me a broader worldview. So I choose to live on the west side we chose to live here to raise our kids in this diverse neighborhood. And
I want to enhance the quality of our neighborhood, of our schools, so that everyone can benefit. And I really like the model of the career and college pathways that our current superintendent is championing, and I would further that, and really make sure that we have community models and community-based learning, and that they would be able to go into a career or college pathway and succeed in the future.
All right, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for all your participation today. Special thank you to our candidates for their time and also for their thoughtful responses. And again, this is being streamed, so westsideslc.org.